I read 85 books in 2021, and here are the top 20 books that I absolutely loved and I would like to recommend to all of you. Hi everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel, Noob Readers. My name is Kiran, and on number 20 on this list, the book is I've Never Been Unhappier by Shaheen Bhatt. Now, this is a non-fiction and it is an autobiography of Shaheen Bhatt herself, where she talks about her life with depression. Now, if you're a beginner who has no idea what depression is, this is the best book to pick up because it's so easy to read, and the writing style of Shaheen Bhatt, it's just phenomenal, and she talks about such a sensitive topic, and because she is the one who is suffering from it, so it makes the experience so much more real, and you'll also be able to understand what it means to be depressed. Now, Shaheen says that a lot of times people think that only poor people are the ones who get depressed. But in this case, Shaheen knows that she is privileged herself, but she is the one who is depressed. So she forwards this idea that you do not have to be rich or poor to be depressed. It is something that can happen to anyone. I just love this book a lot, and I just hope that Shaheen Bhatt could come out of this situation and she can get better. And I'm really proud of her for writing this book, because I think this will give motivation to all the people who are depressed so that they can live a better life. On number 19th, we have The Yellow Wallpaper by Charlotte Perkins Gilman. Now, this is a short story which is less than 100 pages, but you'll absolutely love this. It is so creepy that after finishing this book, I was horrified, because whatever that happened in this book is so disturbing, but it's also very interesting and informative for us to understand how the mental health was seen during the 19th century. Now, this is the story of a woman who has just given birth to a child, and she was suffering from some mental health issues. Now, during that time, the cure that was given was the rest cure, where the patient was not allowed to talk to anyone and do any kind of work. They were just confined to a single room. Now, the protagonist of this book is confined to a room where there is this yellow wallpaper that she hates. The woman starts to get really, really sick, and she starts to see some patterns in the wallpaper, and then she also sees that the wallpaper is changing colors during night. The entire thing gets really, really weird as you progress further. I'll not tell you what happens further, but it's an amazing short story, and if you haven't read it yet, please go and read it. You'll absolutely love it. On number 18 in the list, we have The Stationery Shop of Tehran by Marjan Kamli. Now, this is a historical fiction book which basically talks about the Tehran in 1953. Now, this is the story of two teenagers who fall in love in a stationery shop. Now, after falling in love, they get engaged, but something happened and they get separated. Now, after 60 years, they meet again, but they still have feelings for one another. So it's a beautiful romance book. But I have to say that I'm not the kind of person who believes that you can still have feelings for someone after 60 years. But I have to say that it's a beautiful book because it's written so well. The best part about this book was the food and how we have so many different recipes mentioned in this book, which I absolutely loved. So I really liked how I got to see another culture and to learn about them through this book. So I absolutely loved it. On number 17th, we have 5 Feet Apart by Rachel Lippincott. Now, this is a romance book about two teenagers who are suffering from cystic fibrosis. Now, this is a lung disease, and this book is about these two teenagers who fall in love, but they can never be 5 feet apart because the two cystic fibrosis patients have to always be 6 feet apart so that they cannot infect each other, which can actually lead to the death of one of the patients. Now, I absolutely love this book because it reminded me of The Fault in Our Stars, which is my favorite romance book of all time. And I'll not say that this was better than The Fault in Our Stars, but it was definitely good. And if you are craving something like The Fault in Our Stars, then you can pick it up and you'll absolutely love it. On number 16th, we have Behind Her Eyes by Sarah Pinborough. Now, this is a psychological thriller which starts off as an infidelity story where the husband is cheating on the wife, But as you read further, this book completely changes and becomes this really creepy and twisted storyline. And then comes the twist. And oh my god, that twist was amazing. I'll definitely say that you'll not see that twist coming and it will shock you. And I just want to go back in time to read this book again because it was so damn good. And I'll just say I'll not give you any other spoiler because I want you to just go and read this book. So yeah, highly recommended. On number 15th, we have Kim Ji-young, born 1982 by Cho Nam-joo. Now, this is a story of Kim Ji-young, and we follow her throughout her life from childhood, teenage to adulthood. Now, this story talks about her life and the struggles she faced as a woman in Korea. Now, when I was reading this book, I cried throughout this book because I could relate to her. Like, literally, I am an Indian, but I could relate to whatever Kim Ji-young was going through. So the story talks about the discrimination against women in her own household, which is so common in India as well. And I loved this book because it shows the struggles of being a woman, the struggles of being a mother, and how women are kind of discriminated in our society. I highly suggest this book for everyone, but if you're a woman, please go and read it. You will absolutely love this book. On number 14th, we have It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. Now, this is a contemporary romance book which talks about a very sensitive topic, that is domestic violence. And I can't tell you how many times I cried throughout this book. Like, this was very difficult to get through because of how emotional it was. And it talks about a very toxic relationship. Now, before actually reading this book, I always thought, why would you want to be with someone who physically and mentally abuse you? But after reading this book, I actually got another perspective. So I'm really glad that I decided to pick this book up. On number 13th, we have The Guest List by Lucy Foley. Now, this is a psychological thriller and it reminded me of Agatha Christie, and being a huge Agatha Christie fan, I absolutely love this book. Now, this is a story where we are following the guests who are there on this isolated island to celebrate the wedding of two best friends. Now, this is a story of a wedding gone wrong because one of the guests gets killed, and then this becomes a classic murder mystery. Now, I absolutely love this book because of the amount of backstory that we got about all of the guests. So it was really interesting to read about. Now, I have to say that I was able to guess who the murderer was. I would have loved if I was not able to guess it, but still, it was really amazing and I absolutely loved it. On number 12, we have You by Caroline Kepnes. Now, this is a psychological thriller where we are following a stalker. Now, I never thought in my life that I'll read a book that would be about a stalker and his obsession. But I have to say that it was so interesting to read about because of how twisted, creepy pervert he was. Like, literally, he does all of these crazy shit in this book. Like, he is obsessed with this woman, which he is always following around. He breaks into her house. He hacked into all of her social media accounts. So it gets really, really creepy. And I just really like to see how he will justify all of what he was doing. And he'll just say that he's so in love with her, so that's why he's doing it. He's just trying to help this woman out. And it's just really crazy. And I just cannot even, explain whatever that he's doing. But I have to say that every character in this book is crazy. Like, literally, none of the characters are good. Everyone is just bad and you'll just hate each and every one of them. And at some points in this book, I was actually feeling sympathy for a stalker. I can never even imagine that. But the way this book is written, it can actually make you sympathize with the stalker. So yes, it's a very interesting book and I think everyone should pick it up. On number 11th, we have I'm Thinking of Ending Things by Ian Reid. Now, this is a psychological thriller / horror genre book, and I definitely have to say that it was scary. Like, I had this creepy feeling throughout this book that made me so uncomfortable, which makes this book so interesting to read. Like, I'll definitely say that go and read this book and do not read a lot of, reviews and just go into it blind, because this is the kind of book that you will enjoy if you do not know anything about it. But if you still want to know that, I'll tell you that this is the story of a couple who just started going out fairly recently, but the boy wants the girl to meet his family. Now the girl is not happy in the relationship and she's thinking about ending it. So that's why the title of this book is I'm Thinking About Ending Things. But then comes the twist, and that twist is just amazing. You'll not see that twist coming, and it's so good. And for some minutes, I was like, what the fuck? Like, it was just so confusing as well. So, it's something that you need to read with a lot of concentration, because if you lose concentration, you'll not understand what exactly happened. But yes, it's a great book, and I highly, highly suggest it. Go and read it. You'll absolutely love it. Now on the number 10th, 9th and 8th, we have all three books from the Wheel of Time series. So on number 10th, we have The Eye of the World. On number 9th, we have The Great Hunt. And on number 8th, we have The Dragon Reborn. Now, I have to say that I became a huge fan of the Wheel of Time series this year, and I recommend this book to all of you. It's a great fantasy series, which is basically a classic. So if you have never read this book, I'll link all the dedicated reviews in the description down below. Please go and read it. And I have created so much Wheel of Time content on this channel because of the adaptation that is going on right now. So if you want to check out that content as well, you'll find all the links in the description down below. On number 7th, we have Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Now, this is a historical fiction book which talks about a very, very popular band in the 70s called Daisy Jones and the Six. Now, this band was at the peak of their popularity when they disbanded. So nobody knows what was the reason why this disband happened. So after a lot of years, a person is trying to figure out this thing by going to each and every member of this band and taking their interview. Now, this book is written in an interview style, so it can be a little difficult for you to read. So I highly suggest you go and listen to it as an audiobook, because the audiobook is like a full cast audiobook, so it gets really, really interesting and easy to read. I absolutely love Taylor Jenkins Reid and her writing style, so I'm going to read each and every book that she writes, and this one was so emotional because of the love story that we see in this band. So I highly suggest you to read this book because it's so good and you'll absolutely love it. On number 6, we have Modao Zushi by Mo Sheng Tongshu. Now, this is a Chinese BL novel that is one of my favorite BL novels out there. I just love this book so much because of the love story of Wei Wuxian and Lao Wanji. Now, this book also has a live action drama called The Untamed. If you haven't checked that out already, please go and watch it. You will not be disappointed because of how good it is. It also has a donghua, which is basically the Chinese animation called the Grandmaster of Demonic Cultivation. You can go and watch that as well if you like. Now, the thing is that this book is not only a love story, but it has so many hidden themes inside it, which I want you guys to read and figure out because of how good it is. So yes, I highly suggest it. Please go and read it. I absolutely love it. On number 5 on the list, we have Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. Now, this is a young adult fantasy book that is a part of the Grishaverse. Now, I personally am not a huge fan of the Shadow and Bone trilogy, but I love this book. Now, this is a heist story and we are following these amazing characters like Kaz, Inej, Nina, Violin, Jasper, Matthias, etc. I mean, all of these characters are just so damn good and you'll fall in love with them, with the story. And my favorite characters are Inej and Nina. They're just so strong, independent women. So yes, if you are into heist, you will absolutely love it. So please go and read it. So number 4th on the list, we have Aristotle and Dante Dive into the Waters of the World by Benjamin Ayres Science. It's a YA book, which is basically a coming of age story. Now, this is a sequel to the book Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe, which I absolutely loved. Now, in this particular book, we are following Aristotle and Dante again, but they have been growing up and we see how Aristotle is becoming more and more interested in Dante, and Aristotle is actually kind of getting really scared because of his love that he's feeling for Dante. So we know that homosexuality is not something that is accepted a lot in the world that we live in. So Aristotle has a lot of confusion and frustrations because of the love that he feels for Dante. But by the end of this book, they get together, which is something that I absolutely loved. And the best part about this book was the communication that these kids have with their parents, and the kind of connection that Aristotle and Dante have with their respective families is something that's commendable and something that I personally love to read about. But I still feel that the first part was my favorite, and that was the part that I loved even more than this particular book. On the number three, we have Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Now, if you have been following my channel, you know how much I love this book, and I have been talking about this book a lot on my channel. Now, this is a historical fiction where we are following this really amazing character called Evelyn Hugo. Now, she is the definition of charisma. She's just so powerful, so independent, so beautiful, and she's the kind of woman who gets whatever that she wants. And I thoroughly enjoyed this book because of the writing style of Taylor Jenkins Reid, and this is the first book that I read from her, and I just became a fan instantly. So if you have still not read this book, please go and read it. It's highly recommended by me because I love this book so much. So number two on the list, we have Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe by Benjamin Aris Science. I love this YA book because of the friendship between Ari and Dante. This is the first time that they meet and they become friends instantly. Now, Aristotle and Dante were completely different from each other, but still they became friends. And this book is just written so beautifully. I just love the writing style of the author and the way he was able to capture the innocence of these two kids and their friendship. And I just love Dante in this book a lot. I love Dante and his relationship with his family, Mr. Quintana and Mrs. Quintana. They were just so sweet. And the way Mr. and Mrs. Quintana used to talk to Aristotle as well, it was just so beautiful. And I just love this book a lot, and literally I want to go back in time and read it again so that I can experience the kind of happiness that I felt throughout this book. Now, there is this one moment in this book where Aristotle gets injured, and that moment is so heart-wrenching, and I was literally crying at that time. And it's just a beautiful book that's written beautifully, and it is the kind of book that needs to be read by every single person and to experience whatever that this amazing author has written. Now, number one on the list, we have The Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller. Now, this is a historical fiction book, which is basically the retelling of the Iliad. And this is the first time that I read any Greek literature, and I loved it. I think Madeline Miller is such a brilliant writer. I love this book because of how beautiful, flowery, poetic the writing style was. I always thought that I'll never like the whole poetic writing style thing because it will be way more difficult for me to understand. But no, this book is so easy to understand, just so beautiful. And it is written from the point of view of Patroclus, and it is a love story of Patroclus and Achilles. Now, throughout this book, you'll find Patroclus talking about Achilles, and he's just describing Achilles in such a beautiful manner. He's always talking about how beautiful Achilles is and how much he's in love with him. And I can definitely say that I've never read anything that was this beautiful, and I am going to read all of the Madeline Miller's work because I became a fan. So that was my list, and these are my top 20 books that I absolutely loved in 2021. Did you like any of these books? Please comment it down below, and if you like this video, don't forget to give it a like, and please consider subscribing to the channel, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.